Skull Merchant has found herself at the hands of one of DVD's famous reworks, where they simply delete a killer and wait to change her for later. They have some history of doing this when a killer becomes somewhat popular and disliked by the community. Let's take a look at Billy. Billy's original Overheat rework was famously hated by the community. Released on the 28th of July 2020 and fixed on the 30th of January 2024. Though the overcharge mechanic has made Billy another target of hatred, when he had Overheat, he was the game's most popular killer to go against. But before that, Billy was possibly the most hated killer in the game due to his Insta-Saw add-ons. They were the only things that really needed to change, but he was left in a mangled mess instead. Now, rather than declaring dev incompetence, I'd like to look at what this meant for Billy, and the scary meaning it may have for Skull Merchant and other similar killers. As I mentioned earlier, Billy's Overheat made him incredibly popular with survivors. This was due to two main reasons: his unbelievable weakness, and arguably more importantly, his rarity. We've seen the same with Demo, that after his removal from the store he became much more popular with survivors, so the same is likely true for Billy. When you take this into consideration, Behavior's rework was a total success. They made the most popular killer in the game, and if they had one success story like him, why not try repeating it? Now, on to the star of the show, Skull Merchant. Reworked once, despite becoming a much healthier killer for the game, people held on to the hatred from her original design. A design that was introduced in one of the most hated metas of all time, she became a symbol of the 3-gen meta. And that symbol stayed with her even after she was changed and the 3-gen meta was destroyed. On October 8th, 2024, the Skull Merchant was, let's be honest, deleted from the game. Patch 8.3.0. This rework increased the difficulty of using her power by halving the number of scan lines, weakening the effect of her movement speed, weakening the effect of her hindered, disabling her drones from activating on fast vaults, and removing the stealth mode, allowing survivors to see her scans at all times. This obviously destroyed the trapping playstyle, as only a single scan line that's visible at all times is basically impossible to accidentally get hit by out of chase. It also harshly reduced your chase power, as not only was it insanely more difficult to get survivors scanned, but the benefit is greatly reduced. Since then, her kill rates and pick rates have plummeted, falling below the average kill rate and joining the ranks of Twins and Hag as the third least picked killer in the game. Supposedly, she'll be getting a rework in a year. Ignoring the fact that a year where your killer was deleted solely due to irrational hatred is criminal, Behavior is notoriously bad about reworking their more delicate killers in a timely manner. Taking a look at a similarly delicate killer, the Twins, they feel like a success story in comparison to Skull Merchant. The release was not well received, and few people played her. I think this fact is what saved them. People don't like Twins, but they're so rare that any hatred disappears long before they're encountered again. But, similarly to Skull Merchant, people who refuse to learn how to play against them have a violent hatred of them. I still have people crushing Victor in front of a pallet giving me a free down to this day, years after their release. Behavior promised a rework for them for years, and after constant delays, finally gave one. One that was hated by the survivors and Twins communities alike, due to feeling too strong and further encouraging the unpleasant slug playstyle. So, it was reverted, and instead some small buffs were given to the Twins and cooldown reductions on the 7.7.0 patch on the 23rd of April 2024. Now, imagine for a second, if Twins was a killer with a high pick rate, they probably would be nerfed into the ground. Crushing Victor puts him on a 60-second cooldown, Pounce takes 4 times longer to charge, Victor moves at half the speed. Then they say, oh, these are just temporary measures, we'll get back to Twins in a year. That's the Skull Merchant treatment. That's the Billy treatment. And if Twins was even a moderately popular killer, I genuinely believe that changes like this would have happened. So, what's the point of this video? It sounds like I'm just complaining about nerfing a killer. So what? It happens all the time. But Skull Merchant's nerf is something I don't think we've seen since Hillbilly's Overheat. He too was hated at the time, so they deleted him. Then they waited years until the public sentiment shifted, and once people liked Hillbilly, they made him into an actual killer again. It wouldn't surprise me if they purposefully deleted Skull Merchant in hopes of emulating Billy's rise to popularity. This thought scares me, as it means any killer may receive the same treatment if enough backlash comes from the community, despite what the actual strength of a killer is. I hate that this rework happened the way it did, that so many innocent Skull Merchant players had their killer removed from the game, and are forced to watch as the entire community dances on her grave. I do have that small amount of hope that maybe this rework had to happen. Maybe, like Billy, anything but the complete removal of her would have kept her as the most hated killer, regardless of what her power actually is. My hope is that, over time, the community will realize how pitiful Skull Merchant is, and like Overheat Billy, they will come to enjoy her rare, weak presence. And maybe someday, she can be buffed like Billy, receiving a redemption and a real place among DVD's roster.